Right, guys, welcome back to UK Pro Muscle Podcast, long awaited. Jamie is actually training and James is obviously in Dubai. So James will catch up with us when he can. And Jamie will when he can as well. So I'm going to run these every fortnight. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Luke Miller from Noswitchfitness. Luke is an educator. Luke is a fantastic coach and an athlete from the other side of the world. He's definitely someone that I very much value when it comes to the education side and when it comes to bodybuilding in general. He's definitely one of the greatest minds out there, along with Mr. Jewett and others. I definitely rank him very highly when it comes to the coaching side and when it comes to the education side. So I definitely think we will bring you a lot of great knowledge today and a lot of gems that you can take away from. And the topics are going to be definitely close to our hearts, which is going to be the first one, leading by example, which I think that topic means a lot to me and you. So it's going to be a good one to get stuck into. Biggest mistakes and lessons you made in bodybuilding and you had. And I think that's going to lead us on nicely onto the post-show rebound, which I think we both will have the same opinion on that from experiences that we've had and from the mistakes that we've made. So first, Luke, definitely would like to get the listeners to get to know you a little bit better. So please tell us about yourself. Don't hold yourself back. If there's anything that you will hold yourself back with, I will pull you and I will make sure you cover it all. So I want it all about Luke Miller, all about what you bring and what you do and what you're about, man.
Yeah, for sure. So first off, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on the podcast. It's definitely topics that I'm very passionate about, especially when we start to get into the topic of like leading from the front, right? So a little bit about me. Noswitchfitness, where there's no all switch in the pursuit of results, is my brand, my company. Really, really big on applying that to everything within life. So whether that be bodybuilding or anything we hold outside of bodybuilding. As far as like an educational background for me, I have dual degrees in both mechanical engineering and a master's in exercise science and physiology. So really enjoy the education side of stuff. But for me, it's more about how can we apply that education rather than sit here and be armchair coaches where I can spit off 8 different citations for you, but I can't get into the gym and represent the stuff that I'm speaking about, which is kind of like our whole thing, right? Is like finding where does research meet application in order to create the best results for individuals. And I'm also a competitive bodybuilder. I've competed in 7 shows already. And so it's always something that I'll do and I love. Like I just understand my genetic capacity, right? So for me, my legacy is more built and going to be built in coaching and educating and changing the standard at which we hold coaches in the industry. And that's kind of like my whole goal with like the things that we're doing on an education front, whether it's, the things we're putting on J3U, the things that we're doing via the seminars and things along those lines, podcasts, everything is like, how can we take an industry that I walked into and saw a lot of bad portions of and mistakes that people were making and elevate it by the actions and the content that I put out and the things that I do and the way that I handle my own clients so that it then creates a meta impact and starts to spread throughout the industry. And we kind of see that shift in coaching, which I really do think we're starting to see it. There's a lot of good people putting great content and starting to elevate their coaching practices. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. I do still think though there's a lot of poor coaching practice out there, but I think you're definitely the person to look up to when it comes to obviously the higher standards of coaching and people that actually care about what they do, which to me the main important thing is actually caring about what you do, as that will always have a huge carryover into your service. I always believe that who truly cares about the clients and who doesn't. It will always be fully transparent. But yeah, that's awesome, man. I think definitely under talk yourself a little bit here. But yeah, definitely, guys, you want to check out Luke on his Instagram and YouTube now. He does put out a lot of good content. I mean, back in the day, I think it was like over a year ago, he actually helped me out with single arm extreme row, with the execution side on that. So that was actually a game changer for that movement. So Luke is definitely someone that when he speaks, I listen, and I think many of you should do the same. So first topic that is very close to our hearts, leading from the front, leading by example. Let's maybe tell listeners what leading by example and leading from the front means to you, and how do you go around doing so?
Yeah, I think it's honestly a character trait. The more that I do this and the way that I think about this is like, how do I carry myself on the day to day, right? And how do I represent what I stand for, right? No off switch in the pursuit of results. And this comes down to simply, like we had talked about this before, is just like, how do I run my day to day schedule? Like every single day I'm up between 5:15 and 5:30. I'm knocking out client check-ins or like recording a podcast at 6:30 here my time. Like it's how do I carry myself in everything that I do, right? Whether it's my role as a coach, my role as an athlete, or my role as a husband, there should be a high expectation and standard at which I hold myself, right? And that expectation and standard now creates this leading from the front concept, right? Because there's not something that I haven't put myself through that I'm asking any single one of my clients to put themselves through. Like when we put like 545 on our back and have to squat ass to grass with it, right? Like as we walk a client through logbook progressions and things start to get a little bit nerve wracking as they get stronger, it's like, yeah, I know it sucks and it's nerve wracking and you've got fucking butterflies walking in the gym, but look at this video. I just walked in here and did this, right? Like, or whether it be like the preps that just don't go very smooth and you're just having to fucking nut up and do it. It's like, well, look, I've been in this situation before, right? And I think there's something to be said about the physical representation of someone's physique and progressing on a year-to-year basis, in the context of being a product of your own work. And I think that that's really, really big and a big portion of that lead from the front thing. It's like, I am always willing to admit that I may have been wrong in order to move myself in the right direction to be better. And if I can do that as a coach, every single one of my clients should be expected to be able to do that as well. And it also creates this dynamic of working together rather than a coach-client relationship being a dictator to a subservient individual, right? And again, at the end of the day, like clients should follow like the coach's plans, but it creates this communication streamline that we now have set the standard with our own actions. And there's no point in time where the client's like, oh, look at this, or look at that, or look, you're doing this. It's like, no, like I am ticking my boxes every single day when I wake up. And I think it's so understated, man. It's like, I get this pet peeve of like armchair bodybuilding or armchair coaching, right? It's just, it drives me up a wall. And it's like, they get recognition because they can cite 15 studies verbatim right off the top of their head. It's like, yeah, I've read them, right? I've taken what I need from them. I might not be able to cite them straight off the top of my head, but I've created conceptual concepts in order to anecdotally apply those to my clients, right? And that's where actual coaching happens. And that's why I think leading from the front is so important, because it's like, I'm using this stuff on myself. And if I don't believe on it and enough to progress my physique towards the physique that I want to build, why should I expect my clients to believe in the same methods and practices as well?
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think results always speak for themselves. I think there's so many people out there, and I've had so many arguments over this actually as well. So many people out there academically have got all the knowledge, great posts, they portray themselves great on social media, but unfortunately when it comes to results, there's lack of them. So I think there's definitely a fine balance where you can go the other way. And ultimately what it comes down to is, are you getting results or not? That's the thing. For me as well, I think you cannot expect any of your clients to do anything you say without you actually coming into it and you being able to execute it better than them and being able to execute it at the very highest standard. So for me, you know, I've always preached about routine quite a lot. And I would be a hypocrite if my routine wasn't bulletproof and I wasn't as productive. I don't think people quite realize what it takes to be a high standard coach and how much work it actually takes and what kind of commitment it takes to your craft. And for me, I think that is where you definitely excel, and that is down to routine and discipline. And I think that's definitely something that we both do have when it comes to this game. You know, we're both like dogs. Wake up in the morning, the same routine, and it's the same kind of dog mentality that you have to have. And I think for me, that has a huge carryover into my bodybuilding as well, because ever since I've been this way, my bodybuilding is actually better because I'm a lot more disciplined, because my routine's better, my structure's better, I'm more disciplined, because I know that I have to be in bed at a certain time and I have to get adequate recovery just so I perform in the gym, and I'm able to perform for my clients as well, which is equally as important. So I definitely do like that. And I think in this day and age, I think there's still definitely quite a large barrier that, you know, you do see, and people talk the talk, but not often walk the walk. And I feel like you definitely walk the walk. So, you know, I think leadership by example is definitely something that many people lack at the moment. And it always comes to fruition. It always comes to light somewhere down the line. And you get to actually see who actually walks the walk and who actually talks the talk. So I definitely feel you on that one. I think with leadership by example as well, I think it just, you know, it has a huge carryover into how your actual clients see you as a person too.
Yeah, I think, and like you made a point, like executing better, right? Like holding yourself to the standard to be the standard, right? And it's like, you know, you think about it, you can think about this on any front, whether it be nutritionally or training wise, or even the way that you discuss PEDs, which I'm sure we'll get into today. But like, think about how many times that you sent training videos of yourselves to clients to shows how to execute something, right? It's like, if you aren't holding yourself to that standard of like understanding movement patterns to every single little nuance detail, it's like, how do you expect your clients to execute it, right? We understand that from when we talk about teaching somebody something and learning, cognitive adaptation occurs with visual learning. And so if you're not able to give that example, like, how can you expect these people to be able to do it to the highest standard? And I think about that in front of everything, right? It's like, how do you represent yourself in your day-to-day actions? How do you handle yourself from a nutritional standpoint? Because that cognitive adaptation of them seeing you do it is going to carry over into how they carry themselves.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that's the biggest game changer as well. I think it'll definitely motivate them as well to see. And to be honest, if you wasn't making progress, I think that would question a lot of things as well. If you know, if you're saying you're a competitive bodybuilder, you can't get in shape and you can't grow any muscle year to year, and we're not seeing much progress, then, you know, you may not be practicing what you preach, or whatever you preach may not be quite as accurate as you actually think it is. So there's definitely alarm bells to that, in my opinion. But yeah, you know, I think that's definitely discussion that could really go so many different ways here, so many different ways, especially in this day and age with so many different educators out there that definitely always have something to say, but never really do have the results, whether it's with them or the clientele, to kind of back it up with. And this is definitely where we see the big difference of yourself as an educator. You know, you've got the knowledge and the results for yourself, as you have made quite a significant amount of progress, especially recently, coming back off the rebound that you did, which I have been following closely, which is great, you know. And I think credit to you, you definitely do lead by example. This is why I wanted to speak about this so much at first, because the way you've executed recently as well, and the way you have been carrying yourself on social media and in general, has definitely improved in the past probably 6 to 7 months. It's definitely gotten a bit more, a little bit more professional in every way.
Yeah.
And I've definitely noticed that, to be honest. I've definitely noticed that. It's definitely getting better. And I think with that, you've also made a substantial amount of progress, which is always something that I always mention. For me, when I'm making the most progress as a bodybuilder, that is where all the other avenues in my life also progress the most. Because for me, bodybuilding is always the foundation and the main driving force that pushes everything else. So for me, it's like kind of interlinked. And I think with yourself, it's kind of the same. This is why I was looking forward to this so much, because I definitely think that we'll kind of have the same kind of mindset when it comes to this stuff. And I definitely think that this year has been almost like a breakthrough year for yourself as an athlete, as a coach, and in business too, with what you've been doing. So do you want to touch on that a little bit as well?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things, man, is like I am now a mentor for Elite Vitality, which for anybody who doesn't know, it's a business program out of Australia. Basically helps anybody within the fitness industry, whether it be online coaches, personal trainers, PTs, chiros, whatever. And part of me becoming the mentor was going through a program with them, kind of like their MBA is kind of like how it's set up. And it translated into my business a lot as far as like how much growth in the last 18, 19, 20 months that I've seen. And I think that what you're seeing is just the physical representation of leading by example. It's like, if I'm going to be a teacher to other people and how to run their businesses, like my business better be fucking spot on. Right. Like, and that's kind of where like you kind of see that development happening and like investing into things to further my business as far as that capacity goes. And I really think that, to your point, like the interlinking of everything is probably one of the biggest things that you kind of see it all starts to come together. It's like, and I think it all starts with the structure, right? Like every day needs to look the same. When every day looks the same, everything starts to fall into line as far as like your business, your bodybuilding, even your relationships, right? Because it's like, you know when to turn it off.
This is the single biggest error that I see with my clients is the structure and routine. And do you know what? In the conversation that I have regarding the structure and routine, I have that every single check-in day, at least 3-4 times a day. Same. Because that is literally the main driving force of not being able to adhere, not being able to perform, and things just not going to plan. And the stress levels going through the roof, like it's literally everything. Like since I've been able to truly lock in a perfect structure and routine, like my life's gone from doing okay to feeling amazing and making the most progress I ever have in and out of the gym. So yeah, I totally agree with that, man.
And I think that kind of strings into like the biggest mistakes that we've made as bodybuilders, right? And the biggest things that we've seen be benefits is like a lot of my mistakes have been around like lack of structure, lack of driving all of my vectors forward, and creating life circumstances that allow me to execute at the highest capacity, right? And I think, and we talked about this on a podcast before, it's like even the little things, right? Like, do you follow your sleep routine before you go to bed so that you're able to hit the deepest stages of sleep? Do you, how do you set your morning up first thing in the morning? Like something I use for people is like, Jim Quick has like a 7-step guide to how to start your morning. And I can guarantee you, if you go and look at it, it's not look at your phone first thing when you wake up.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just the little things, right? It's like the little things make the big things fall into place. And it's one of the biggest aspects of coaching that I see. It's like, as far as like mistakes for myself and mistakes clients make, it's like, how many times have you seen people lack progress on a contest prep because they can't seem to get to bed at the same time every night, or they're waking up at different times? Or
I actually had a couple of clients leave because it took me literally 6 months of literally every single week basically saying like your routine is awful. Like the reason why you're not getting in shape and the reason why you cannot get in shape is because one night you're going to bed at 9 p.m, second night it's 1 a.m. It's the single worst routine ever. And you know what? Having a conversation with someone that's quite, of an age, it was so hard. It's like they're both coaches as well, and both business owners. I was like, how do you manage with your routine being so poor? Like, I literally had to be really harsh, and it still didn't work. And it was literally the same conversation over and over again. And the progress was just mediocre. Like, how it is, Luke, when you sleep and the schedule's so all over the place, your meal time is going to be all over the place. Everything's just going to be so suboptimal. It's just, but it's like, it's like trying to, throw your head against the wall. So, I think definitely to dig into the biggest mistakes and lessons, I think that's a great point. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting stuck into that one because I've got some interesting stories I'm going to tell you as well.
Yeah, And I think like, as far as like the biggest lessons I've learned, it's like, it's interesting. So the role PEDs plays in our progress, I think, is probably the biggest learning thing for me. So I am making more progress now, and I'll be as open as need be, on probably half the gear that I've taken in the past, and I'm making better progress than I've ever done. And I would make that argument that it's a combination of understanding deployments a lot better, as far as like mechanistically having that downstream conversation of understanding a needs analysis for each deployment of each drug that we're having, so that it's sequential in nature in order to create a vector of progress within the PED realm.
Yeah.
On top of understanding its role in moving ourselves forward when it comes to how does it relate, like training nutrition, managing the health vector alongside of that, and being able to progress over the long term. Because what you see a lot of times is like people get excited for their cycle, right? Like it's just this super excitement, and it's like they elevate the compound stack design like largely straight out the gate. And it's like they make fantastic fucking progress for 8 to 10 weeks, right? And then it just hits a fucking wall. And it's like, there's probably a better way to do it than the way that you just went about that. And having that conversation of like, acute results are great when you're on a crunch timeline, right? And this is where maybe that large elevation and stack design is warranted, right? Outside of that, if we're talking about building a bodybuilder across the long term and someone seeing their full potential, there's probably a sequential manner in which we need to follow when it comes to PED deployment, health management, and managing all the variables around that. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned, because if you've ever heard the term ride the midline, it's like never get too high, never get too low. It's like you should approach your bodybuilding with that concept, because it allows you to have the objectivity to tick off progress with each vector of progress that you have. And I think that when it comes to that, not only managing that throughout the entire year, but in the post-show process is the biggest learning lesson. And I've got the post-show process has been like a pet peeve of mine recently, just because.
Dude, same here. This is the one I wanted to actually speak to, because there's so many people completely ruining their off seasons right now in England, doing a stupid rebound post-show, blowing up, unable to train, massive pumps, gaining a ton of weight. Do you know what? I've done it before, and it was the biggest mistake I've ever made. It's literally how not to make progress and how to just get fat and waste your whole off season. So definitely get stuck into that. And maybe once you've covered a little bit on that, maybe take us through exactly what you did with that post-show rebound phase and what you're doing now. Because right now, I can honestly hand on heart say you've made the most progress I ever have seen you make, and I've followed you for quite some time. And right now, you're the biggest you've ever been. So I think proof is definitely in the pudding, because you're using far less than you ever did, and you're the biggest you've ever been, and you've made the most progress you ever have. So I think for people that are completely running the rebound right now through just, short-term gain, just to look huge in the gym and blown up like a pufferfish, I think this is definitely going to be an interesting lesson for you guys, because it's definitely something that I have learned the hard way for, and we are bringing this podcast to you guys so you learn better and you don't make the same mistakes. As I did have a series learning from my mistakes, so I definitely want to cover that one so you guys learn from our mistakes as well and learn a better way, more efficient way, and a way that will allow you to progress long term and have a great off season first and foremost, which is what we all want.
Yeah, and I think it starts with presenting a framework of understanding, right? It's detaching ourselves from the bro concept of the post-show rebounds, the most anabolic time, right? And I think, and just to throw both sides of it, right? We can look at literature for this. So there is a 2017 study done by Eric Trexler, who kind of walks you through our capacity to accumulate muscle tissue versus accumulate fat post a diet phase, post like a contest prep diet phase. And basically what was shown is like you show an increase in muscle capacity that first week, which is probably just fluid and glycogen. But then our proclivity to add tissue as far as like solid muscle tissue is very, very, very low relative to our capacity to add like fat mass. Okay. So why is that? When you think about conceptually what a contest prep is, it is long-term fatigue management. That's all it is, right? We're putting ourselves into a progressively more stressed state as we go throughout the contest prep. And so while peak week does serve as a little bit of a deload, we are in probably the most stressed state that we have during the entire capacity of our bodybuilding careers. Okay. And so that amount of general stress, low body composition, proclivity to add fat mass sets us up for maybe going into that post-show phase with a little bit of a different mindset. And the way that I present this is vectors of progress. Okay. So we have things that we can progress over time in order to make the most physique progress. So when we're at that stage, we're probably at our weakest. We've probably lost strength, you know, relative to our off season. Yeah. Our waist is the smallest it's ever been, so we can't even really fully brace to our full capacity. So we have a large training vector. Nutritionally, food is the lowest it's been since the last time you contest prep. So we have a large vector of progress there. And then our stress state is the highest it's been. So we need to do something to combat that. And then our PEDs are probably a little bit through the roof in a contest prep. Now that can get contentious because I think that you could probably be not as high as what a lot of people are. But anyways, that PED deployment is causing a lot of this stress, right? Alongside the body fat levels. So if I'm going to address this stress state first, what I'm going to do is first pull down to what I would call performance HRT. And like, let's not get clinical HRT and the HRT that we use within bodybuilding confused, guys.
So, we'll get loads of comments saying, no, that's not TRT.
You're not on HRT. Like, yeah, well, no shit. Like,
call it what JP did, TRT plus, because JP actually put down, he was dropping down TRT plus, and we had a load of people just basically going in and saying, that's not TRT, but like they completely missed the point that he actually said, look, it's TRT plus, not.
Yeah. So that's why I call it performance HRT, right? It's like
that's probably the best terminology for it.
Yeah. So and I'll kind of use myself in an example here. So for me, stack design didn't get very high during a prep, but for me, performance HRT was 180 mgs of test a week with 180 mgs of primo a week with 3 IUs of growth. Okay. So that's post-show stack design. That's immediately what I pulled back to. Now we start to look at these other vectors, right? So pulling back on the PEDs will be part of pulling the stress back in order for us to perform at our highest level. The next two are looking at getting body fat to a productive level. So actually allowing body fat to come up and setting up our training to be progressive over a long term. Now, this is where a lot of people make a mistake. Let's talk nutrition first. So nutrition is obviously from a caloric total amount, the lowest it's ever been. So our vector for progress on the nutrition side alone is the largest it's ever been since the last time we have competed. So in my head, I'm thinking I'm the weakest I've been in a long time, and I have a large nutrition vector. Why don't I use nutrition to not only drop the stress from here that I'm also dropping from the PEDs, but to also set up a large vector of progress? Because I'm going to be able to increase recovery capacity to perform, and things along those lines by just progressing nutrition over the first 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks post-show. Yeah. Then we get into the training. It's like, okay, we need to have a complete reset. We probably need to introduce the first week within maybe reps in reserve, which is what I would argue, 1 to 2 reps in reserve that first week in order to set the standard of execution that we need, rock bottom volume levels, and just slowly reintroduce training, right? And get us to a point where that vector is the largest for progress that we have. So then week 2 of training then become just the removal of RIR. We see how we recover off that base volume level. And then we're just going to tick off progress from there. We're not going to progress volume up. We're just going to take the performance progressions that we have that we know are in the tank because we're at the weakest we've probably been in a while. And we're starting to drop fatigue from all the other things. And so with that, we can make a shit ton of physique progress with performance HRT, nutrition, and training, because our nutrition and training vectors have the most room for progression over time than they've ever had at any other point in the year. right? And so as we progress this over 6, 7, 8 weeks, if we manage this side correctly, body weight will slowly be coming up, net fatigue will be dropping. And this is where I say like rock bottom volume on training, because we don't want to train so much that we actually drive fatigue up. So where we're 6 to 8 weeks post show, we are unbelievably feeling better. We have dropped a lot of the fatigue. Our weight's up, so our capacity to perform is better from like a joint niggle standpoint, our capacity to brace, things along those lines. And now we can pull labs, make sure health is good, and then start to use the PED vector of progress. Okay. And that is kind of how I've ran my contest prep or my post-show phase from contest prep. And as you said, it's the best progress I've made within a post-show phase. I finished prep at like 213-ish, 214-ish. And I'm at like 241-ish right now with like glute striations, hamstring fully piano stringed out, and still have a midsection, which for me to have a midsection is
yeah, that's literally the first thing that you will just like, it's unbelievable. That your glutes could be, and your midsection's like,
I'll have feathering in my glutes and like barely any abs, and it's just my proclivity. So
I'll swap you because I'm way around. I could be like 270 and I'll have full abs. But like my arse is just terrible. It's like a load of barf. Yeah.
So, and I think just to kind of start a set of framework, it's like that first 6 to 7 weeks progression for me was fixing a knee injury that I had. So a lot of my leg training it was hard and it was to failure, but it was at rock bottom volume so that I could spend that time fixing the knee injury.
How many sets per session did you roll with?
Straight out the gate, it was 1 squat set, 2 leg press sets, so 3, 2 quad extension sets, and 3 hamstring curl sets. So for quads, it was 5 sets, and that was hit once every 9 days.
Wow.
Yeah, once every 8 days. And the reason being is because for me to fix my knee, the frequency needed to be lower.
Lower, yeah.
Right. And so
your volume there would actually be lower if you was training more frequent anyway.
Yeah, so it'd be even lower if I was hitting like legs twice in a week. Now my hamstring, I do hit hamstrings again before I come back to that leg day. But for quads specifically, like that's all the volume I was performing. And
how did your training split look then?
It was, what was it? Push, pull off.
Yeah.
Legs push off, back hamstrings off. So it was a pretty large, and that split setup was part of the fatigue drop too. So typically I run that split setup on a 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. So it's a 7-day rotation. So it'll be like PPL off, push back hamstrings off. But in order to drop the fatigue I needed to post show, I added in a rest day so that I was spreading the frequency out, and frequency is a part of volume, right? So when we talk rock bottom volume, it's the total number of sets we perform plus moving the frequency out a bit. And so now like I've created a progression vector where just now this week, I moved back to my normal split setup.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what, 9, 10 weeks post diet phase? Like I have so much room for progress. Like it is unbelievable on a performance standpoint and how that's going to move me up as far as physique progress.
Yeah.
And this is where people lose sight is the 12 weeks in, 14 weeks in, 16 weeks in, 18 weeks in. How are you still progressing?
This is where I get carried away with the training side of things, by the way. That's like 2 weeks post show, I'm feeling good. And I'm like, yeah.
Fuck yeah, let's go.
Having it, bro, every single time, So I actually spoke to John and I was like, over there, I was on a call with John, actually. I was like, yeah, I think for post show training, I'm going to be hitting you and Luke up for some help for sure. Because for me, Luke, like I can emotionally detach myself from the whole aspect of everything I do apart from training. Like,
so hard,
do you know when I walk in the gym, especially obviously at my place, I could be feeling like utter death.
Yeah.
As soon as I walk in there, no matter how shit I feel, like it's game on. I've just done my first D volume session, and I'm probably going to stick to this kind of volume for the remainder of the prep now. But I kid you not, like I was rough that day, yesterday. And as soon as I did my first working set, I turned around to Meg. I was like, fuck this, I'm not deloading. She was like, stop being stupid. You've said it now. You've wrote your logbook out. Just do it. I was like, all right, yeah. And it's a good job really I did, because if I didn't do it, I would probably be sat here like this.
Don't glaze over that point too, right? You wrote your logbook out. Like I think
listen, that's my Bible. That is my Bible. Whatever's written in there, that does not get fucking moved ever.
Right.
That is my Bible, dude. But that's one thing that I actually spoke with John. I was like I can emotionally attach myself from every decision, but you know, sometimes when it comes to training, I still feel like a little kid when I'm in there, and I'm like,
in the post-show phase, it's so hard, man.
Yeah.
You haven't felt that good in a gym in a long time.
And the problem is, Luke, as well, genuinely, it doesn't take me long to recover. Like, it's scary. Like with my blood work and with how I feel, it's scary fast with how fast it comes back.
Yeah.
So I'll be walking in the gym, Luke, and I'll literally be like, fuck this, like we're having it. And then I'll just end up burying myself. And this is where in past, going into the biggest mistakes, it's actually what I spoke to you about in the podcast with John, is I just did way too much post-show last time with training. And like looking back, I've made great progress, but there's so many lessons that I've learned throughout this season and throughout this off season and this prep that's going to have such a massive carryover into my programming, into my training, into everything else that I'm going to move forward with within this off season. Like I know it's going to be the best yet, especially with obviously the drug deployment and everything else that will be changed, which will be a lot smarter and a lot better. And definitely, just like yourself, mate, I'll be using the least I ever have again. It'll be good. It'll be very good. So I'm excited for it. But I think with the programming and the post-show phase, I think both yourself and John are going to be my go-tos in terms of what I'm going to do. But you know what though, Luke? I feel like that's one thing I need to be kept on a leash with.
Training.
That's one thing that I can really just take too far.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man, especially with my emotional attachment to hip hinging. Like you've seen my videos, like I can get on a bar and I can fucking hinge, like, and that's like my thing, right? Like I can put 5 1/4 with bands attached to a fucking platform and just go. Yeah. But it's like, how beneficial is that to bodybuilding? Dude. And if I actually look at my hip hinge, it is so much glute, so minimal hamstring. And it's like, if you look at my back shots, it's like, it's ass and then the rest, right? It's like, I don't need more glute development. My glutes striate out like 13 weeks out. It's like, okay, maybe I need to change the program, because for hip hinging for me, I can't emotionally detach from fucking beating a bar, right? Dude, and that's where like I'm driving the squat vector up now instead of the hip hinge vector. And a lot of my hamstring work is within the confines of like variations of hamstring curls, loading a stretch end range with glute ham raises or altered setups on a seated ham curl, things like that. And it's not that hip hinging's bad, and I'll bring it back in at some point, but
it isn't. But do you know one thing I've noticed is when I pulled my hinge work probably about 5 weeks ago, my back responded so much, and it's made me think, what if I didn't do all the hinge work before my back work throughout my off season? How good will my back look?
I haven't been doing my hinge work before my back work for like 6 months now. And I would agree, is with as strong as we are too, it's like back work, a shortened end range hamstring curl, and then hip hinge.
Dude, honestly, I was thinking about this. I was like, in prep, I did all that hinge work and it probably cost me a ton of progress.
Yeah, it probably
doing a lot.
And it's just
with the change of programming that I did, I added extra hinge work, and it just, dude, it ruined the look. Until I started making manipulations with the programming, I was looking worse and worse. And then when I started pulling the volume out, I started bringing things down. I just started looking better and better. Like, even example now, I I've got my volume down again. And literally the one deload session that I did yesterday, I already look fuller today and I already look flesher and leaner. And like in my head, I'm like, if I feel good after the next few sessions, shall I just put my volume back up? And I'm like, no, I'll just stick to my guns and just ride into the show now, because that is what's going to actually create a much better look. So this is what I mean. Like, it's so easy for me to program it for someone else, especially with the training. But when it comes to me, I can really get carried away with it so much because I love it so much.
And I think that's another thing to bring it back to post show. It's like when we talk about like not only the training, but the nutrition and the PEDs, like people after a show, whether they win or they lose, I would argue a lot of times a little bit more when they lose, fucking put it back to the people and just like progress. Right. And it's like, I'm just going to fucking redline things. Right. And it's like, you will make acute progress. There is no doubt that you will, in an 8 to 12 week time frame, make acute progress. My question is, how far does that progression vector go? And what are you doing 18, 19, 20 weeks post show? Are you still moving the needle in the right direction? Because if you are, I guarantee you your amount of progress you're going to make is going to be a lot higher than the person who chose to progress for 8 to 12 weeks. And that is my differential here. And it's like emotionally detaching from the training side, the PED deployments and the nutritional deployments. It's like, if you can learn to do that, it just makes your long-term progress so much better, because things like hip hinging are such a large debt to pay from a recovery.
I agree. And then looking back now, I genuinely think, Luke, it's cost me so much progress. And I think if I didn't pull them out at the time I did in prep, this prep would have been a disaster if I didn't start managing things. Yeah.
And I think just to kind of set framework too, like for me, it took 8 weeks to really feel comfortable with escalation and PED deployment, because I was making so much progress just with training and nutrition. It's like, I don't need it right now. Keep taking it while I got it, right?
Dude, absolutely. I think you've took the right step at the right time, and it's shown. Like, I've seen you progress week to week, constantly, no stopping.
Yeah. And Mike, just for people to understand, like, I was riding that 180 a week of test and primo with the growth. My first deployment was test to 210, primo to 400, growth to 5.5.
Wow.
That's my first deployment, right? I'll ride that out for probably 4 weeks when I see that primo hit peak serum levels, and then we'll reevaluate and go from there. Am I taking progress still? Yes. Okay. Keep ticking along. Do I need more to help with recovery capacity and tick it off more progress? Okay. Slight escalation. Right. And it's like, if you can create that system and that objective process, it's like the amount of progress you take. I guarantee you, Kuba, I will be 24 weeks post show still making progress.
Listen, that's the goal. Like, that's the conversation I had with John, actually. And I was like, dude, this makes so much fucking sense. I was like, I used to be the guy that used to just be like, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'd make a ton of progress, and then it just comes to a stop. Whereas looking at things from this perspective, and I've already got my little plan set for the post show. I'll WhatsApp it you after, you can see it. But it's honestly, Luke, it's literally like pretty much bang the same, mate. Apart from post show, I will literally just use test. I don't need primo because I don't really advertise much. So for me, post show, I will literally just use test and GH. But I'll send you the plan over. It's quite cool, and I'm really looking forward to it, because I think, do you know what? I spoke with John about this as well, and I think I'll be able to shock a lot of people at the progress that I can actually make using so little, and prove to people that it can be done using minimal dosages. And I think that's something that I definitely want to preach to keep people healthy and make sure people don't make the same mistakes as I did in past. Because for me, again, you know, I don't claim to be no educator. I don't claim to do that, but I do like to inspire a lot of people to do things better ways. This is why I've done a lot of series on learning my mistakes, etc. And I'm definitely going to share this off season in detail with people and show them what can be done whilst keeping your health in check, whilst keeping your blood markers in check, and whilst not using any stupid exotic supplementation throughout your off season, and be able to progress over a longer period of time as well. So that's definitely something that I'm so excited for, man.
And I think that type of representation of progress is important so that that conversation becomes more commonplace.
This is what I want, man. This is what I want. I want this to reach so many more people, to show them that there is a better way.
And to talk about elevating the standard at which we hold coaching, it's like having that thought process for your client of how can I keep them progressing over the long term, rather than being concerned with the 8-week transformation post that you can post to your IG just to be marketing material, is like probably the conversation we need to start having as coaches. Because I'll be honest with you, from a business perspective, the long-term progress you'll make with that client over 24 weeks rather than the short-sighted 8-week transformation post will be so much different and so much drastic that like your client will be in a better spot. Their health markers will be in a better spot. They'll be making more progress. Plus you have, as a business owner, better marketing material.
People,
like you can't ignore the business, but at the same time, you got to prioritize your client first.
And mate, honestly, I think a lot more people need to listen to this. If you are listening to this, I would like skip it back, guys, and re-listen to what Luke said. But I think people always get shocked when I tell them, especially post-show, I'm like, dude, like, I'm not just thinking of your progress now, I'm thinking of your whole year. So when I tell my guys, what do you mean you're thinking of a whole year? Well, it's like, first we're going to have the recovery phase, we're going to play it there. So things may change, but the kind of blueprint and the plan is literally set for your whole year, dude. Like, that's the way I like to work things, not just for the next 20-week blast or the next 6-week blast like some people like to do. That's just short-lived, in my opinion. And it's short-lived progress, and it's short-lived when it comes to longevity in the sport as well. It's like, I'm thinking about this a lot. Like, you know, I'm 27. I want to be competing until I'm 40. And to do that, I need to consider all these things. Touch wood, you know, I haven't got myself in a position where I'll not be able to do that, especially right now, doing things a lot smarter way. I'm confident now, you know, I can do that and stay relatively healthy and get out of it without dying, which is the key.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's we're actually basing our whole next seminar on this. Like, I'm giving a presentation on tracking, monitoring health markers and how that looks relative to PED stack design. And John's giving like a safer use model for PED usage. And it's like, that's the kind of content that needs to start being portrayed. Cause like, there's still people, like there was a forum I came across the other day that doesn't believe the dosages that we're discussing. It's
Dude,
like,
I think what we're going to do is I think we'll have to get yourself and John back on as well. And we'll do an episode on this.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think that that's kind of where, you know, and just to kind of bring it back, like that contest prep period, it's like where the most mistakes are made are probably with the PEDs. It's like most people do a halfway decent job of like the training and nutrition. Like I could argue the nuances for days, but the PED side is where a lot of people go down the tank. And it's like now you have client A 15 weeks post show with the worst health markers he's had his entire bodybuilding career, and having to pull back so hard in order to fix that he's not progressing at all.
By that point as well, they're already getting softer, the body fat's already getting higher. So, and they come off PEDs, and that just gets even worse. So it's like a short-lived rebound for then just a barrage of downhill spiral, in my opinion. So you're kind of doing things backwards. It makes no sense, because I've done it before in 2017, where I did a rebound, 8-week rebound. I kid you not, Luke, after that 8 weeks, within 5 weeks of being off, I was a mess. And I made, that was the year I probably made the least progress. It completely ruined my off season. So that's the mistake I'll never ever make ever again. I do agree with this though. The biggest mistakes were always post show, in my opinion. Just not taking into consideration how powerful, in my opinion, food is. Like, people overlook the most powerful thing at your disposal is food and the ability to eat. The second you lose the ability to eat, the ability to process nutrients, the second you lose your sensitivity, the second you get inflamed, that is when your off season's done. And what is going to cause all this? Staying on cycle, post show, driving that systemic fatigue higher and higher, and just running your body into the ground, like that is not the time. That is certainly not the time. That's probably the worst time you can do it. And credit where it's, credit where it's due. I think you've executed this post-show phase immaculately, especially look at the progress you've made, dude. Like every time I look, I'm like, Jesus, Luke's doing a great job here. It's great to see as well, because it makes me excited, it definitely makes me motivated as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely great to see, man. I just wish a lot more people actually got to see it. This is why I've got you on here, and this is where people can actually see and see what it's all about. Definitely some great content as well. So I think, is there anything else you want to touch on the mistakes post show?
Honestly, man, I think it just comes down to understanding fatigue management. And I don't want to use that as like an excuse to like not do, right? You should still be getting in there and fucking leaving it all on the floor. Yeah. But when it comes to like managing the health side and stuff, it's like, that's probably more important for the long-term success of your client than, like I said, the 6 to 8 week transformation post you get out of blasting gear. And I think if we can start to conceptualize that and a better understanding of PEDs, health markers, nutritional variables alongside those, and training variables alongside those, we'll start to create that buy-in where people see, oh, Luke went from their post-show to their 10 weeks post-show, and this is where his stuff is. Oh, okay, this is great. I like this, right? It's like, to your point, like we can theoretically discuss it all day, but if we don't have the results in front of you, right, like it's not going to matter. But we do have the results in front of you to be able to speak to that. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the last really touch point.
Yeah, I think definitely made some amazing points there, Luke. I think this is definitely golden value. I'd actually had someone message me and say, why do you give all this content away for free on YouTube and Instagram? I'm like, dude, like, I love it. I don't care. Like, look, if someone can benefit from this, that's a win from me. I don't need no money from it. Doing this is what makes me happy. And do you know what, Luke? I'll absolutely love this conversation. I think so many people will get so much value from this, in my opinion. I really do. And I think just the points you've made have been incredible. They really have, and I definitely think that, a lot more people should try this at least and give it a go. I know there's still a big stigma, and I think the biggest issue with this as well, Luke, is to do this the way that we do now, you have to be a lot more patient, because you don't see that initial bounce which people always look for. And unfortunately, you have to look at where you're going to be in 12 months time. And I think this is where a lot of people lack the patience and lack the kind of grit that you need to be able to do that. Like with me, I can be patient, I can take my time. With yourself, you've shown that big time. Yeah. And I think this is the biggest issue right now, is having the ability to really grit your teeth and really be able to take your time to get to that point, and really be able to plan things as to where you're going to be over the next 12 months rather than just over the next 12 weeks. I think that's the biggest issue that I'm still seeing with a lot of people.
Yep. And I think it's just lack of, we're bodybuilders, right? We're type A, we want it now, like it's got to be done. It's just fucking do it. And it's like, it's like a blessing and a curse, right? It's like it executes on the day-to-day very well, but it can also drive you to pushing things a little bit too far. So
absolutely agree.
I think the more it's discussed and the more it's shown, the more it'll become commonplace. So I think that's kind of why we do the content that we do, right? And it's kind of why both myself, yourself, John, like all of us that are putting content out like this do that, so that it becomes more commonplace.
Yeah, definitely. I think both yourself and John are definitely the people that I look up to a lot, and the people that I definitely do reach out to quite a lot. Like both yourself, John, and Mr. Jeffries, definitely my go-to people right now. It's just thought process very much aligns with what I like to do and how I like to do things now anyway. So definitely my people. So definitely shout out to these guys and shout out to yourself. And dude, really appreciate you coming on today. Guys, if you want to find Luke, it's Luke Miller at Noswitchfitness on YouTube and Instagram. Luke, do you want to plug yourself? Plug yourself away, buddy. Come on, plug yourself.
So Noswitchfitness on Instagram and YouTube. We also have a podcast, Noswitchfitness podcast, and I also do J3U podcast
Ones as well.
And so a lot of free content coming y'all's way as far as that kind of stuff goes. We also do like a seminar series. So next one is San Antonio, October 24th, which I already discussed some of the content we'll be doing there. And stay tuned. I can't give details, but we're coming UK side next year. So looks like a string of 2 to 3 seminars. So I'm super excited for that. So we'll leave the details of that on the DL, but we'll just put the little teasers out there so that
don't worry, guys. We'll announce it. And once it's announced, we'll make it happen. I'm sure it'll sell out. So I really can't wait for it, to be honest. Luke, it's been incredible. Really appreciate your time, buddy. Guys, if you want to hit up Luke, he's a great coach. He's a great educator. Any issues you have, hit him up through Instagram. Show him some love. Follow him the old Insta. Give him a like and a subscribe on YouTube. He is putting out some amazing contests, guys. Amazing content. You can tell that's 2.5 weeks out.
You're a little too close to me for putting words together right now,
dude. Do you know what? I'm okay up until about 5 p.m. and then I'm just totally useless. Up until 5 p.m. okay. So, guys, UK Pro Muscle, we're back. Really appreciate you all, and I hope you've all taken something away from this. Thank you, guys. Take care and peace. We'll be back soon, and I'm definitely going to have Luke back on to have the conversation in depth regarding the PDUs and safer use model. I might actually do like a bit of a roundtable. Yourself, Mr. Jewett, and possibly Joe, as I do like Joe as well.
Let's do it, man. I love Joe, the stuff Joe puts out. It's always a good conversation when we're in the same room / Zoom console or whatever yours is.
Same thing, man. Same thing.
So yeah, I'm definitely down for that.
All right, guys, that's the announcement for next one. So thank you, guys. Take care and peace.